It was a bright afternoon in Ouagadougou, the capital city of Burkina Faso. President Ibrahim Traore had just finished a surprise visit to a local school. His heart warmed by the laughter and curiosity of children who dreamed of brighter futures. As he walked back toward his convoy, something caught his eye. A man sitting by the roadside, his back against a dusty wall, a tin cup placed carefully in front of him. His clothes were torn and dirty, his hair streaked with gray, and his eyes carried the weight of years lost to hardship. People hurried past him without a second glance, their lives too busy for compassion. President Traore paused. Something about this man seemed hauntingly familiar. He signaled to his security detail to wait and slowly approached the figure. "Joseph?" he asked hesitantly, staring at the man before him. The man looked up slowly, squinting as if trying to place the face in front of him. Then recognition dawned, and his mouth dropped open. "Ibrahim?" he gasped, struggling to stand on trembling legs. "Yes, it's me," Ibrahim said, his voice thick with emotion. "What happened to you? You were one of the brightest men I knew." Tears welled up in Joseph's eyes. He quickly wiped them away, glancing around as though ashamed of being seen like this. "It's a long story, my friend," he murmured. "I never thought I'd see you again. Not like this." Ibrahim placed a gentle hand on Joseph's shoulder. "Come with me. We'll talk." Joseph hesitated, looking down at his tattered shirt and bare feet. "I'm not fit to enter your car like this. You're my friend, Joseph. That's all that matters." At the presidential residence, Joseph bathed for the first time in months. Clean clothes awaited him, and a hot meal steamed on the dining table. As he ate, he kept glancing at Ibrahim, his eyes filled with both gratitude and shame. After the meal, Ibrahim poured 2 glasses of juice and sat across from him. "Now tell me, Joseph, what happened? You were once respected, admired. What brought you here?" Joseph sighed deeply, leaning back in his chair. "It started 3 years ago." He recounted how he had been a respected school principal in Babulasso, hardworking and honest. He had built a small house with his savings and married Stella, a woman he loved dearly. At first, their marriage was beautiful. They laughed together, supported each other, or so he thought. Over time, Stella began to change. She spent more time on her phone, grew cold, and often shouted at him over trivial matters. Joseph ignored the signs, convincing himself she was just stressed. One fateful day, Joseph returned home early from work. Walking into his bedroom, he froze. Stella was in bed with another man. "I couldn't believe it," Joseph whispered, his voice breaking. "It felt like the ground opened beneath me. I was frozen. She didn't even apologize. She followed me out and told me it was over, that I should leave the house because the man she was with was now the one she loved." Ibrahim clenched his fists, anger flashing across his face. "Leave the house you built?" Joseph nodded, tears streaming down his cheeks. "She took me to court. She lied, saying she had financially supported me to build it. She even produced fake documents. The judge ruled in her favor." "And then?" Ibrahim asked softly, though his jaw was tight with indignation. "I lost everything. My job, my home, my dignity. My little savings went to pay lawyers. I had nowhere to go. For a while I stayed with a friend, but shame drove me away. I started sleeping under bridges, begging for food. Some days I ate once, other days nothing. Every night I saw her face and his laughing at me. I wanted to die." Ibrahim listened silently, his heart heavy. When Joseph finished, there was a long pause. Finally, Ibrahim stood up. "Joseph, I'm sorry. You didn't deserve any of this, but I promise you, your story isn't over yet." As Joseph drifted off to sleep that night in a clean bed, Ibrahim sat alone in his office, deep in thought. Could he really undo the damage done to his old friend? Or would Joseph always carry the scars of betrayal, Unbeknownst to Joseph, Stella regretted her actions almost immediately after taking the house, but pride and the false promises of her new lover kept her silent. Meanwhile, the corrupt judge who ruled against Joseph continued to profit from similar cases, leaving countless others destitute. The next morning, Joseph woke up to the smell of breakfast. For a moment, he thought he was dreaming. A staff member entered with a tray, smiling warmly. "Good morning, sir. President Traore asked me to serve you." Joseph stared at the plate of food, his mind racing. What did Ibrahim have planned for him? And could this truly be the beginning of a new chapter? The morning sun filtered through the curtains of Joseph's new home, casting golden streaks across the cozy living room. It had been 2 weeks since President Ibrahim Traore gave him this house, a modest yet beautiful building with a small garden and everything he needed to start anew. For the first time in years, Joseph woke up without the gnawing ache of hunger or the suffocating weight of despair. He stretched lazily in bed, marveling at how soft the sheets felt against his skin. As he stepped outside, he saw Ibrahim waiting for him near the car. "Good morning, my friend," Ibrahim greeted warmly. "Are you ready?" Joseph nodded, though uncertainty lingered in his eyes. "Where are we going?" Ibrahim smiled knowingly. "You'll see." They drove to the edge of Ouagadougou, where a newly constructed shop stood beside a bustling secondary school. The sign above the door read, "Joseph's Bookshop and School Supplies." "This is yours," Ibrahim announced proudly. Joseph froze, staring at the shop as if it might vanish into thin air. "Mine?" "Yes," Ibrahim replied firmly. "Your love for education can inspire others. You'll manage the shop, sell books, pens, notebooks, everything students need. And don't worry, I've arranged support for the first year to ensure stability." Tears welled up in Joseph's eyes. "Why are you doing all this for me?" "Because you deserve it," Ibrahim said simply. "And because I believe in second chances." Over the following weeks, Joseph threw himself into running the shop. He opened early every day, arranging books neatly on shelves and greeting customers with a warm smile. Students flocked to his store, not only for supplies but also for advice. Many came from poor families who couldn't afford private tutoring, so Joseph offered free guidance during slow hours. One afternoon, as Joseph helped a group of teenagers solve math problems, an elderly man entered the shop. He watched silently for a moment before approaching Joseph. "You remind me of someone," the man said thoughtfully. "Who's that?" Joseph asked curiously. "My late brother. He was kind like you, always helping others no matter what." He faced. The man paused, studying Joseph intently. "Whatever brought you here, son, it must have been hard. But look at you now. You're making a difference." Joseph felt a lump rise in his throat. Those words stayed with him long after the man left. One Saturday, as Joseph arranged fresh stock on the shelves, the bell above the door jingled. He looked up and froze. Stella stood there, pale and disheveled, clutching a small suitcase. "Joseph," she began hesitantly, her voice trembling. "Can we talk?" Joseph's heart raced. Memories of their past flooded back. The betrayal, the court case, the nights spent crying under bridges. He crossed his arms and stepped outside, bracing himself for whatever she had come to say. "What do you want, Stella?" he asked coldly. Tears filled her eyes. "He left me," she whispered. "The man I left you for. He sold our house, emptied my account, and ran away with another woman. I lost everything." Joseph closed his eyes briefly, struggling to process her words. When he opened them again, his expression was calm. "I'm sorry to hear that, Stella, but I've moved on. I have a peaceful life now, a life you chose to destroy." "I know," she pleaded, "and I'm so sorry. Can I stay with you? Just for a while?" Joseph shook his head slowly. Stella, I forgave you long ago. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. This house isn't your home anymore. Find your own path. She stared at him, shame etched deeply into her features. Finally, she turned and walked away, leaving Joseph standing alone in the doorway. His heart pounded as conflicting emotions swirled within him. Had he done the right thing? Or should he have shown her mercy? That night, unable to shake off the encounter, Joseph called Ibrahim. She came back, he confessed. And what did you tell her? Ibrahim asked gently. I told her no. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then Ibrahim spoke, pride evident in his tone. I'm proud of you, Joseph. You didn't let bitterness cloud your judgment. That takes strength. Joseph exhaled sharply. Thank you, Ibrahim. You didn't just give me a house and a business. You gave me back my dignity. Unbeknownst to Joseph, Stella returned to her rented apartment that evening and broke down completely. She scrolled through social media, finding posts about Joseph's success. Photos showed him smiling alongside students, managing his thriving shop, and even attending community events. Each image stabbed at her conscience. Regret consumed her, but pride kept her silent. Meanwhile, the corrupt judge who had ruled against Joseph continued to exploit vulnerable people, ensuring they remained trapped in poverty. Weeks passed, and Joseph's life settled into a rhythm of purpose and fulfillment. Yet, something still tugged at the edges of his mind. Late one night, as he sat reading in his office, a thought struck him. What if Stella wasn't the only one haunted by regret? What if there were others like her? People who made terrible choices and desperately needed redemption? Joseph set down his book and picked up a pen. He began jotting down ideas for a foundation aimed at helping struggling individuals rebuild their lives. But as he wrote, a question nagged at him. Could he truly forgive Stella and others like her? Or would bitterness always linger beneath the surface? What would his next move be? Weeks turned into months, and Joseph's life settled into a rhythm of purpose and fulfillment. His bookshop thrived, becoming more than just a store. It was a sanctuary for students seeking guidance, teachers looking for resources, and parents hoping to give their children a better future. Every morning, Joseph opened the shop with a smile, arranging books neatly on shelves and greeting customers warmly. He had become a pillar of hope in the community, proof that even after hitting rock bottom, one could rise again. One Friday morning, as Joseph arranged pens on the counter, the doorbell rang. He looked up to see a woman walk in. She wore a simple blue dress, her face calm and kind, her eyes bright with warmth. "Good morning," she greeted softly. "Good morning," Joseph replied, stepping forward. "How may I help you?" Looking for mathematics textbooks for senior school," she said, glancing at the shelves. "Follow me," Joseph said, leading her to the section. As he handed her the books, she smiled. "Thank you. I've seen you before. You help the children who cannot afford books." Joseph chuckled humbly. "They remind me of who I used to be. Education saved me once. It can save others too." The woman extended her hand. "I'm Grace. I teach at the secondary school nearby." "I'm Joseph," he replied, shaking her hand. "I own this place." Grace raised an eyebrow, impressed. "That's wonderful. Your shop is neat and welcoming. We need more people like you in this area." Joseph felt his heartbeat quicken slightly. It had been years since he'd spoken to a woman this way. Years since he'd allowed himself to feel anything beyond survival. "Thank you," he said, his voice soft. "You're very kind." Grace became a regular visitor. Sometimes she came to buy teaching materials. Other times, she simply stopped by to chat. Their conversations grew longer and deeper, touching on topics ranging from education to personal struggles. Grace shared how she lost her husband 5 years ago in a tragic accident and was now raising her young daughter, Rachel, alone. I understand pain, Grace admitted one afternoon as they sat outside the shop, watching the sunset. But I also understand healing. You've been through fire, Joseph, and yet here you are, still standing, still helping others. That takes strength. Joseph looked at her, his heart swelling with gratitude. I don't feel strong. I just feel lucky to be alive. No, Grace said firmly, meeting his gaze. Luck doesn't keep someone going when everything falls apart. Strength does, and kindness. You chose to rebuild instead of giving up. Her words lingered in Joseph's mind long after she left. For the first time in years, he felt something stir within him, a flicker of hope, perhaps even affection. One evening, as Joseph closed the shop, Grace appeared with a small container. I brought dinner, she said shyly. Just a token of appreciation for all you do for my students. Joseph hesitated but eventually accepted. They sat together under the stars, sharing food and laughter. Little Rachel, Grace's daughter, joined them, giggling as Joseph taught her how to count, using pebbles. You're good with her, Grace observed, smiling. She's a smart girl, Joseph replied, ruffling Rachel's hair. She reminds me of myself at her age, curious, eager to learn. As the night wore on, Joseph found himself opening up to Grace in ways he hadn't with anyone else. He spoke of his past, the betrayal, the loss, the shame, and how Ibrahim Traore had given him a second chance. Grace listened intently, her eyes filled with empathy. You deserve this new life, Joseph, she said gently. And maybe you deserve love too. Joseph froze, his heart racing. Did she mean what he thought she did? Before he could respond, Rachel yawned loudly, breaking the spell. Grace stood up, laughing softly. We should go. Thank you for tonight, Joseph. Thank you, Grace, he murmured, watching them leave. That night, Joseph called Ibrahim. I think I've met someone, he confessed. Ibrahim chuckled. Joseph, the lover boy, who would have thought? It's not like that, Joseph said, though his tone betrayed his feelings. Her name is Grace. She's calm, wise, and full of light. Then don't let that light go out, Ibrahim advised. You deserve joy, my friend. Unbeknownst to Joseph, Stella continued to follow his journey online. She saw photos of him with Grace and Rachel, smiling happily, running his thriving business. Each image pierced her heart with regret. Pride kept her from reaching out, but guilt gnawed at her conscience. Meanwhile, Grace struggled internally as well. Though she admired Joseph deeply, she feared opening her heart again after losing her husband. Would she allow herself to love again, or would fear hold her back? Over the next few weeks, Joseph and Grace grew closer. He began spending weekends with Grace and Rachel, teaching the little girl to read faster and building a cozy reading corner in the shop just for her. Rachel adored Joseph, calling him Uncle Joe and clinging to him whenever he visited. One sunny afternoon, Joseph took Grace and Rachel to a quiet garden on the outskirts of Ouagadougou. The air was crisp and the flowers bloomed vibrantly around them. As they sat beneath a tree, Joseph knelt gently, holding a small ring in his hand. I don't have much to offer, he began, his voice trembling. But I have peace, respect, and love. Will you marry me? Tears welled up in Grace's eyes as she nodded. Yes, Joseph, 1,000 times yes. Rachel jumped up, hugging them both tightly. Does this mean Uncle Joe is my daddy now? Joseph laughed, pulling her close. If you'll have me, sweetheart. The wedding was small but beautiful. President Ibrahim Traore attended, beaming with pride. After the ceremony, he pulled Joseph aside. You look like a man who finally found his peace, Ibrahim said. I have, Joseph replied. Because of you, my friend. Because you never gave up on me. But as Joseph danced with Grace under the stars, a question lingered in his mind. Could he truly leave the past behind forever? Or would the shadows of Stella's betrayal always linger somewhere in the recesses of his heart? Months had passed since Joseph and Grace's wedding, and life for Joseph was unrecognizable from the days when he begged on the streets of Ouagadougou. Every morning, he woke up in a home filled with laughter, Grace's gentle voice calling out to Rachel, their daughter, who giggled as she got ready for school. Together, they shared breakfast around the table before Joseph left for his thriving bookshop. The shop wasn't just a business anymore. It was a hub of learning and inspiration, where students came not only to buy supplies, but also to seek advice and encouragement. But Joseph knew his journey couldn't end there. Inspired by Ibrahim Traore's kindness, he decided to pay it forward. One evening, as he sat with Grace on their porch, sipping tea under the stars, he turned to her. "Grace," he began thoughtfully, "I want to do more. I've been given so much. I need to give back." Grace smiled knowingly. "You already have, Joseph. Your story inspires everyone who hears it." "But what about those still struggling?" Joseph pressed. "Men like me who lost everything and feel forgotten. What if we could help them rebuild their lives?" Grace placed her hand over his. "Then you should do it. You'll never know how many lives you might change." The next day, Joseph called President Ibrahim Traore. When they met at the presidential palace, Joseph outlined his vision. A foundation dedicated to helping men who had fallen on hard times regain their footing. "Ibrahim," Joseph said earnestly, "you saved me. Now, I want to save others." Ibrahim nodded approvingly. "This is a noble idea, my friend. Let's make it happen." With Ibrahim's support, Joseph launched the Joseph Foundation. Its first project was building a shelter for homeless men, providing them not only with food and shelter but also training in small business skills. Some learned carpentry, others barbering or tailoring. Each man left the program equipped to start anew. One sunny afternoon, Joseph stood before a group of these men, addressing them warmly. "I was once on that street," he told them, his voice steady yet emotional. "I felt invisible, worthless, but one friend changed my story. Now, I want to change yours." Tears welled up in the eyes of several men. One stepped forward after the speech, gripping Joseph's hand tightly. "Thank you, sir," the man said hoarsely. "You've given me hope again," Joseph smiled. "Hope is all any of us need to begin again." Back in a distant town, Stella worked long hours at a small restaurant, her beauty faded and her spirit crushed. Her boyfriend, the same man she betrayed Joseph for, had drained her savings and disappeared, leaving her drowning in debt. The house she stole from Joseph had been sold, and now she lived in a cramped rented apartment. Every night, she scrolled through social media, unable to stop herself from searching for Joseph's updates. Photos of him smiling beside Grace, running his successful business, and helping others through his foundation haunted her. She stared at a recent picture of him receiving an award from President Ibrahim Traore, tears streaming down her face. "How did I let this happen?" she whispered to herself. "Why didn't I see his worth when I had him?" Her guilt consumed her, but pride kept her silent. She wanted to reach out, to apologize, to beg forgiveness, but feared rejection. Instead, she buried herself in work, hoping to numb the pain. Meanwhile, word of Joseph's success spread far beyond Ouagadougou. News outlets interviewed him, asking about his incredible transformation. During one interview, a reporter asked, "What would you say to someone like your ex-wife, who caused you so much pain?" Joseph paused, reflecting deeply. Finally, he answered, "I tell her that bitterness doesn't heal wounds. It only creates scars. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about freeing yourself from anger. I forgave her because holding on to hate would have destroyed me." Stella watched the interview from her tiny apartment, clutching a cup of tea. His words struck her like a thunderbolt. For the first time, she realized the depth of her mistakes. not just toward Joseph, but toward herself. That night, she wrote a letter to Joseph, pouring out her heart. She confessed her regret, apologized profusely, and thanked him for showing her the power of redemption, even if she hadn't earned it. She sealed the envelope but hesitated before sending it. Would he even read it? Or would it reopen old wounds? The end, she tucked the letter into a drawer, resolving to find her own path to healing. One day, President Ibrahim Traore invited Joseph to speak at a youth conference. As Joseph walked onto the stage, dressed in a neat gray suit, the crowd erupted in applause. He scanned the audience, spotting familiar faces, students he'd helped, men he'd mentored, and even Grace and Rachel sitting proudly in the front row. He began by recounting his fall from grace, losing his home, his dignity, and nearly his will to live. Then, he spoke of Ibrahim's intervention and how it reignited his belief in humanity. I was a man who lost everything, not because I was lazy or foolish, but because I trusted the wrong person, he said, his voice trembling with emotion. My own wife took everything from me. I was mocked, humiliated, and left with nothing but shame. But on one hot afternoon, a man I once helped found me on the street. That man didn't walk past me. He remembered me. He picked me up, cleaned me, restored me, and reminded me that broken things can be beautiful again. He paused, glancing toward Ibrahim, who smiled warmly from the audience. Today, I don't seek revenge. I don't wish her pain. The best revenge is peace, joy, and moving forward. I want you all to know that no matter how bad it gets, your story can change if you don't give up. The room fell silent, then erupted into thunderous applause. Yagjanga. People wiped away tears, inspired by Joseph's resilience and wisdom. That evening, as Joseph sat beside Grace on their garden bench, Rachel playing nearby with their puppy, he reflected on his journey. Do you sometimes think about her? Grace asked gently. Joseph looked up at the stars, not with anger, just with wonder. How someone can throw away gold and pick sand. Grace chuckled softly. Well, she lost a good man. Joseph turned to her, smiling. And I gained a queen. Grace leaned her head on his shoulder, content, in the quiet moment. Back in her distant town, Stella sat alone, staring at Joseph's photo online. She saw his happy home, his loving family, and his inspiring work. It crushed her to realize what she had thrown away. But instead of wallowing, she resolved to change. Slowly, painfully, she began volunteering at a local charity, finding solace in helping others. Years later, President Ibrahim Traore hosted a special dinner at the presidential palace to honor Joseph's contributions to society. As they sat in the garden beneath a canopy of stars, Ibrahim handed Joseph a small box. What's this? Joseph asked, puzzled. An award, Ibrahim replied, smiling. For your work with the Joseph Foundation. You've saved many lives. Joseph opened the box to reveal a golden medal engraved with the words, "To the man who changed lives." Tears welled up in his eyes as he stood and hugged his old friend tightly. You didn't just change my life, Joseph said, his voice thick with gratitude. You gave me the chance to change others too. Ibrahim smiled. That's the power of one hand lifted in kindness. As the evening breeze swept through the garden, Joseph gazed at the stars once more. Who would have thought, he whispered, that the man with nothing would one day have more than he ever dreamed. His eyes filled with tears, not of pain, but of joy. The past was behind him, the future was bright, and this time, no one could take it away from him. Dear viewers, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like, share with your friends, and turn on the post notification bell so you'll be the first to know whenever we upload a new video. Thank you for watching.